you're going to be doing this a lot.
So we're rolling right now. You want to practice your intro?
Silence that thing.
And then you guys have your phones on silent.
Are we doing hands in front, hands in back?
I'm a hand talker, so they're not going to stay there long.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay. I don't even know what to say. How do I start out? Hello, good morning, good day?
Yeah, this is perfect.
Probably need to redo that.
Feels good.
Oh my gosh.
Overall goals.
I'm
more just concerned about his face. Gotcha. The graphical.
So is my wife. My wife's concerned about that.
It's not going to hurt either our feelings if this ends up like on top of it and you just hear us talking behind it, because then you don't even know what I'm doing up here.
Hey, that's really a good idea.
Yeah.
Why did we do that to start with? We don't need to be in the video.
I'm just an idea guy.
I think of that. Cut, print, check the gate, moving on.
My name is David Knox, Battalion Chief, Battalion 2 on A shift.
I'm Skylar Ainesworth, Battalion 1 B shift.
Well, here we are, folks. Welcome to the Midrise Fire CE for the month of March. It's been a long time coming, but we're here. Normally, what we try to do is get the training done citywide before we disseminate an SLP to the groups. But in this particular case, we had a lot of SLPs that needed to get across the finish line so we could get them in lined up for the study groups coming up at the first of the year, so here we are. The overall goal of this video is to get a good understanding of the Midrise SLP and the tactical plan for these buildings. They're all over the city. Every battalion has them. And only when I got in Battalion 2 did I realize the enormity of the challenges that are presented to us in the fire service. The Midrise, it's a word, it's a new buzzword across the industry, across North America. And as we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, the numerous challenges that are going to be presented to us.
All right, so one of the things we need to talk about as a group is what is a Midrise. We've had these in our city for a long time, but we hadn't had them defined like we do now. And so we need to understand that a Midrise is going to be 3 stories up to 75 feet, or 7 stories on that. And a lot of that has to do with building codes. A lot of that has to do with the fire code itself, and also our reach of our aerials. So if we can understand that, we can see how we have some challenges when we're trying to differentiate between a high-rise and a mid-rise on that. You can see kind of here behind us, there's 2 different types of these that we're laying out in this. We've got a traditional, and then we got a large complex. Traditional, if we think about the makeup of that, that's basically in construction features, it's the same as a high-rise. It's just shorter. It's a little bit smaller, but it still has some fire protection in the construction. It has a lobby. It may even have a non-combustible outside or exterior to it. When we look at the large complexes on here, we can see here on the pictures behind us, these are very big apartment complexes. They may have commercial underneath them. They're going to take up full city blocks, and in a lot of these, they're all wood. They're combustible structural members, they're gusset plates, they're lightweight construction, and they're enormous. And they're doing this really to get around the fire code of building a high-rise. A high-rise has a tremendous amount of fire protection features built into it that don't have to be included in something like this. So they can take that large building, now put it into a big footprint of a full city block, and go up to 7 stories on these. And then we can even have things where we have the podium construction, where we can do a type 1 first floor or second floor, and then still go 7 above that. And so we have to just know our buildings, know our territories, really get out there and walk these. Unfortunately, for us, the best time to notice a lot of this is when it's under construction, and we already have hundreds of these that we aren't going to have that opportunity to see. But they're building them every day in the city across our territories. So if we can get into them while they're under construction, we can start learning a lot of the differences on these.
So a lot of the questions that have been asked are, why can't we run the high-rise policy in some of these mid-rises? Well, as Skylar was saying, they're different. High-rises with type 1, type 2, fire-resistive construction, they're different than what a type 5 construction will be, which is stick frame. So let's talk about a high-rise real quick. So high-rises, They have NFPA 13 system. They're fully sprinklered. All the voids are sprinklered. Full coverages, higher GPM flow on the sprinkler systems. You have pressurized stairwells. You have a fire command center. You have on-site engineer or building engineer on site 24/7. Emergency PA system for the occupant evacuation. Standpipes, sprinkler systems. You have backup generator systems in case there's a power failure for the building. A lot of these top 5 mid-rises do not have these features, as Chief Ainesworth is about to go over. So these buildings are different. High-rises downtown, they have one central main lobby. That's where everybody goes in due to security reasons. They have a main elevator bank.
All right, so we heard some of the issues that we have with the high-rise and why these are different. Let's talk about some of the differences now that we're going to face with our mid-rise and why these things are going to be important to us. Number one, we need to look at the construction type on this. You can still have some type 1 and type 2 construction in your mid-rises, but what you're going to see a lot of is type 5, and that's obviously concerning for us. Type 5 being combustible, type 5 being lightweight, and type 5 has a ton of void spaces. And we have to understand that one of the biggest differences in this is those void spaces are not sprinklered. We can have fire spread horizontally, vertically, in all these void spaces, and the building system is not designed to stop those. We could see residential sprinklers in some of these that could hopefully control a fire in a single room, but if it breaks past that, we now have a structure fire that's several floors up in the air that can spread horizontally on us. So it's a really big tactical problem for us. Some of the other issues that we have on here, they're really complex in the way they're connected. They're laid out as a huge footprint, and they're all interconnected somehow through voids. And so we can have a whole city block of apartments that are interconnected in their footprint on void spaces. Obviously, a huge problem for us there. We see down here, these FDC standpipes and sprinkler systems, if they're in the high-rise setting, they have to be tested annually. They have to be inspected. They have a lot more kind of rigors to go through. On a mid-rise system, they just have to be put in place during construction, pass initial testing, and then beyond that, it's really on the property owner to maintain that. And so they become really unreliable for us. If we think about every year when it freezes, where we end up during the freezing temperatures, we end up in these buildings for our frozen pipes, our alarm system failures, and a big part of that is just the design of them. They weren't designed to be and be maintained annually like a high-rise would be. Some of the other things, we don't have pressurized stairwells, we don't have PA systems in there, we don't have a standpipe system designed for us to fight fire off of it without us supporting that. We also have issues of the footprint itself where the FDC outlets or standpipe outlets for us to connect to can be hundreds of feet away from some of these apartments. We've taken some measuring wheels out, and I think you got up to about 500 across the street from Station 2 from a stairwell outlet to some of the apartments. That's going to be a big challenge for us if we brought up 150 feet of hose on here. To get around the fire code, what they're doing is they are putting in some fire doors in the hallways, and they're putting a standpipe outlet in the middle of the hallway. But those things don't help us in a fire and a void space that's going to go right over that fire door. The standpipe outlets in the hallway don't help us because we don't want to connect to those because that doesn't lead us out. That just leads us into a hallway. And so, again, more challenges to overcome. And we can do that, but we have to have a lot more tactical considerations in here. We have to have options. And we're going to get into that later in this video of some of the things we can do to still get quick water on the fire that isn't reliant on the building system like we will be in a high-rise. Some other things we have to consider on a mid-rise. These buildings are in reach of our aerials. So our aerials need to be in play. And so you're going to hear about some new positions on the fire ground of inside truck and outside truck and what they're going to be doing. You're going to hear some new terms on fire attack options for us because these buildings aren't as tall. We can use our hose to have a reliable fire attack for us in the stairwells or on the exterior of the building or up our aerial waterways. This is going to give us a lot more options for fire attack than we have with a high-rise. One other thing that we need to be mindful of as we get into our pre-assignments too is in a high-rise, we send our engineers, they're going in with the crew. On a mid-rise, we're leaving, all of our engineers are staying outside. Now that's not them running around everywhere. They actually are going to have assigned groups. They're going to belong to a group in the kind of command structure of this. But they stay with their apparatus. Because when you saw the pictures of some of these large footprint, these large complex buildings, if we go to the address side of this thing to investigate, we may be an entire city block from where we need to be. So we need some people out there that can reposition apparatus for us, for fire attack and for rescue. All right, one last consideration for mid-rise that we have to think about too, again in the layout of these, are going to be interior courtyards. When we look again at this aerial view of some of these, right in here, there's a kind of a pool area built inside there. All of those apartments have balconies now that face to the interior of a courtyard. These over here have something similar in there. And so those people, if there's a fire and the hallway's compromised with smoke, they're going to retreat to the balcony expecting to be rescued. Now we have a problem where our aerial ladders are not going to reach those because they're in the middle of the building. So we're going to have to get out ground ladders, and to some degree we don't even have ground ladders that are going to reach some of these floors. So we're going to have to think outside the box on how we're going to perform some of these rescues, because these people are going to go out there to the balcony expecting us to come get them. And so we have to start getting good at our 35-footers and start figuring out how we're going to get a 35-foot ladder through the first floor of a mid-rise and into a courtyard, and start really training on some things that are not ordinary for us. But there's some tactical considerations on these that are just going to be different. And they're already out there. So we're already behind the curve on this. So we have to get good at it really quickly.
So as Chief Ainesworth mentioned earlier, the podium construction, he was talking about like 5 or 6 stories of wood frame on top of a concrete deck. Well, some of these mid-rises, you might have the pool deck on top of the 2nd or 3rd floor. It's sitting on a concrete slab. So to get access to those interior balconies, you have to actually go up to floor 2 or 3 to get access to the pool decks, the interior courtyards. So as he was talking about the challenges of even getting a 35-footer into some of these interior courtyards, is going to be next to impossible. You know, can you take a 35-footer up a stairwell to get to one of these courtyards, and then you're only going to reach the 3rd floor window, perhaps. Then you have interior obstacles in some of the courtyards, string lights, landscape boxes where you may not even be able to use a ladder at all in some of these courtyards. So be thinking about that, get it outside your territory, look at some of these buildings and be thinking about, oh my gosh, if we had someone at a window or a balcony, how are we going to get to them? So it's just about knowing your buildings and knowing that it's just adding to the challenges that these buildings are going to present if we have a fire in one of these, and the floor spaces and the voids that's really pushing out smoke numerous places.
Hello, my name is Greg Keeton. I'm a captain at Fire Station 1. This is Brian Hekele. He's an engineer also at Station 1. Today we're going to be talking about our mid-rise operations and specifically your pre-assignments in regards to your mid-rise operations.
Okay, let's start with the dispatch info. So, you know, we're sitting at the station and the tone goes off. The first thing that registers with us is what kind of a building is it we're responding to? Is it going to be a traditional short high-rise like the chiefs were talking about, or is it going to be our large complex apartment building that spans over several blocks? We have to know that in advance. All that information is going to dictate our pre-assignments. If we're responding to a mid-rise, we have pre-assignments specifically for those buildings. I'm going to speak now about the engine pre-assignments. Captain will hit the truck pre-assignments. First on engine is going to respond, and their pre-assignment is suppression. The first thing they have to know is use their knowledge of the building, whether they're responding to the dispatch address or if we know it's an apartment over here in the 3000s or 4000s, we want to respond in these mid-rises directly to that location. If we respond to the fire alarm panel or to the main dispatch address, we could be several blocks away. So we want to use our knowledge of the building to be able to respond directly to the dispatched address. That first company is going to pair up with the truck. Their pre-assignment is suppression. And they're going to work first to investigate right? They're going to form up a suppression group under the captain, and they're going to investigate the fire in the area, the fire floor. All other companies, this has to be said, it cannot be said too much, all other companies have to stage away from this building until the suppression group locates the incident and determines where they're going to anchor their fire attack from. The second on engine is going to be also suppression. After staging away, once they locate the fire and they say it's in the 3000s, now that company will move up, locate the first on engine, and they're going to join the suppression group. So the officer and 2 firefighters will gather their equipment, make entry into the building, locate the first engine company, and their goal is to assist with putting that first hose line in service. The engineer of the second on engine is going to stay outside the building. Hopefully there's a hydrant close by. If they locate a hydrant that they could do a forward lay, they might do that. Or he'll drop his crew off and then do a reverse lay from there. The second on engine engineer is going to assist the first on engine engineer with getting a water supply. The third on engine, after staging away, once we know we're anchoring our attack, third on engine is going to move up to that position, park their apparatus out of the way, join suppression company, assist with putting that hose line in service, assist with suppression operations on the fire department and the neighboring apartments. The third on engineer is going to stay with his apparatus. If already a water supply has not been established, he's going to assist with establishing that water supply to the hydrant. He might get an order to go locate the FDC and start working on hooking up to the FDC. The fourth on engine, well, after staging, after we get the anchor, where we're going to anchor our attack from, the fourth on engine will move up to that position, and they're going to assume floors above. Just like similar in a high-rise, the fourth on engine is floors above. They're going to take all their equipment, their suppression equipment, and search rope, and they're going to go investigate what's going on the floor above. The fourth on engine, engineer, stays with his apparatus. He's going to park his apparatus out of the way, receive an assignment whether to assist the first, second, third on engine with their water supply at the point of attack, or he also might get an assignment to go supplement the FDC. Remember, when we hook up to the FDC, we're doing this really to supplement the building system if sprinkler heads have popped. If we hook up to the building standpipe, then also we have to supplement the FDC to get the right water pressure. Fifth on engine is going to stage away from the incident. Again, once that point of attack, that anchor point of attack for suppression is established, that fifth engine will move up. He has to park, that engine has to park far enough away. Their crew is going to stage and await an assignment. So this is going to be at the discretion of the division officer or of the commanding officer, the incident command, of what their assignment will be. Next up, let's talk about fire attack options in these mid-rises. For engine companies, as an engine officer, your goal, just like in a high-rise, is to determine what type of a fire attack you're going to make. We have 4 options for the engine officer. First option, locate the closest stairwell to your incident. Pull a hose line up that stairwell. Stretch your hose line down the hallway. Using similar tactics like a hallway stretch or a stairwell stretch in high-rise, we use the stairwells in these mid-rises to pull hose directly from our engine to the point of the fire. The second option is pulling a short. So if we do not have a stairwell here and we're 200 to 300 feet away from the point of where the fire is showing itself or where we've located it on investigation, we can pull a hose up from the engine, up the outside of the building through a window and out into the hallway into the neighboring apartment that has the fire in it. So this term again is pulling a short. This is a fairly new term for our fire department, but it's tactics we've used in garden-style apartments and other things as well over time. We've just kind of given it a new title, and we've given it a tactic and a tactical option for engine officers to use in these buildings. The third option is we are too elevated, we're on the third story, fourth story or higher, and we don't want to pull a short, we can hook up to an aerial standpipe. Similar to how we use aerial standpipes in parking garages, we can hook up to the aerial standpipe on the exterior of the building, stretch through the neighboring apartment to the hallway, and back into the fire apartment. The whole goal of this is to get water on the fire as fast as we can. The last option is the building standpipe. And again, this is the last option, is using the building systems for the reasons that Chief Ainesworth mentioned, and also for what I just mentioned, the fastest way to get water on the fire. If we have to, we can hook up to the building standpipe and stretch a hose line to the fire. There's a few things that have to be done for that to happen. We have to be supplementing the FDC with engine pressure. The fire pump has to be working in our favor to supply a sprinkler head and our building standpipe hookup. Okay, so to wrap up the engine company operations, we have our pre-assignments. We have our fire attack options. A couple of the musts that we have to do is stage away from this building until we find out where our operation is going to take place. Once we get there, as an engine company, we have to leave room for the trucks. These are mid-rises within reach of our $2 million apparatus that we have. We have to have ladders up on these fires for secondary means of egress and to do outside vent work and to reach the roof. If we have our engine companies parked in those areas, these narrow streets, this urban environment, our ladder trucks will not be able to reach these parts of the building. So for engine companies, let's get our water supply. We have a manifold engine. We have a water supply engine. Everybody else needs to be out of the way and allow those truck companies to get in there.
I'm going to be talking about your truck company pre-assignments. Your first truck, you'll be a suppression group. You will, along with your engine, go investigate the fire floor. You have several functions that you must do as part of that suppression group. You will basically be performing a search on that fire floor. You'll be also doing forcible entry on that fire floor, and you'll also be doing ventilation on the fire floor. If you have an active fire on that floor, you must take division and become that division group supervisor, the truck company officer. You will be managing that division floor, all the companies that will be arriving on that floor. For your first truck, your suppression group, you're going to be working and focused on mainly that apartment unit that is on fire and possibly those adjacent units. You're going to be performing searches in that area. Okay, for your second truck, your pre-assignment is going to be inside truck. Your assignment for inside truck is to basically go to that fire floor, check with that division supervisor, and you're going to be doing some truck work on that floor. Your area of focus would be more that hallway evacuation or evacuations of the other units that haven't been searched by your suppression group. Also, for the inside truck, your area of focus should be ventilation, possible pressurization or ventilating the stairwells, because remember, these mid-rises, they don't have pressurization systems inside the building. We must pressurize those stairwells and set the ventilation up ourselves. You possibly could be ventilating that hallway of the fire floor or ventilating floors above as well. Your third arriving truck for mid-rise operations, you'll be the outside truck. The outside truck officer will be managing all three of these other trucks that are arriving. Your job is to basically manage the possible ventilation options, setting your aerial apparatus to the roof. We could also be using an aerial standpipe, and you will be managing that operation as well with that other truck. And most definitely, we need to be setting these ground ladders to those fire floors. If we pull a short, we must set a ladder to that window. We must have an exit point from wherever that hose enters that mid-rise. Okay, for your outside truck, you must remember all the trucks must enter the scene and prepare to set your aerial ladders to that building. This is a really good diagram, and this could be possibly your aerial standpipe, where one of your trucks is basically set up to that fire floor to an adjacent unit preparing for attack. As part of the outside truck, you could set up your secondary truck, the second truck, that's going to set that aerial ladder possibly down the hall or to a different corner of that fire floor. And remember, I spoke about it a little bit earlier, your third truck needs to be set up basically to the roof for roof access, for ventilation. Engineers, you must remember that the engineers off all three trucks must stay with that apparatus. It is important that we have someone very familiar with that apparatus to be able to set these trucks up for you. But that third truck officer, you're in charge of all three trucks as part of outside truck duties. In closing, I want to remind you, you must take all your high-rise equipment with you on this type of incident. You're using the same equipment you would in high-rise. Also, please remember these options. This is a very coordinated attack. Okay, you must coordinate and communicate with your truck companies to be able to set this thing up. Brian's going to talk real quickly about your truck company engineers and what you should be doing. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think it needs to be reinforced again that we want aggressive truck company engineers on these incidents. We have fires in elevated structures that are within the reach of our apparatus. We want our engineers of the ladder companies to get in there, get positioned, get your outriggers set up, and get your ladders up into the air. My main focus when I drive Tower 1 is ventilation and secondary means of egress, working from the exterior of the building to support the suppression operation that's going on just on the other side of those windows or doors on the balcony. We, as engines, we have to leave room for those truck companies to get in there and be aggressive with their ladder placement.
So our common themes on these mid-rises, they're truly unique. They're not traditional apartments that we know to be in Woodhaven and 20s territory or 23s territory around the Normandales. They're truly different and they're not high-rises. The construction type, it's wood frame, stick lumber. We know it burns. When we talked about the podium construction, so you could see a mix of steel, concrete, mixed in with wood frame. A lot of that's going up. As Chief Ainesworth mentioned, there is truly a difference between the mid-rise building code and the type 1 fire-resistive high-rise building code for these structures. The key difference also being mid-rises, we can reach every floor with our aerials, which we have to emphasize proper aerial placement at every mid-rise auto alarm and every mid-rise fire assignment.
Yeah, and in conclusion, we've got 5 keys to a successful mid-rise operation. One of the first things is going to be pre-incident planning. You guys getting out and knowing your territory, knowing your buildings, and then also documenting that in first due so that we have up-to-date information while we're en route can be essential for us. If we have properly preloaded alarm assignment on this, right now we're collecting data and getting information into the CAD to make sure that we have the right complement of apparatus responding to an incident in a mid-rise. But if we are en route and we know that building is a mid-rise and it has not been upgraded in the system yet, we can request from alarm to upgrade it to a mid-rise alarm assignment. This is also an option for us if we get on scene and realize that a building is a mid-rise once we are there. But all of our companies on this have a pre-assignment, and they all have something to do for the success of this incident, but we have to have them on scene in order to do that. Properly preloading this alarm will help with that. Another big key is company level discipline. Everyone has a pre-assignment in this, but we have to be patient. We have to wait and let the first on crews that are forming a suppression group dictate what our plan is for fire attack. This means slowing down and staging and waiting till they recon the fire and get back to us with what their plan is for fire attack and where the fire is on these large buildings. We have to stage away from the building until suppression announces the plan. In a high-rise, we all migrate to the lobby because that's the center of focus of the building to get into and up to the fire floor. On these buildings, we have to stay back. If we are at the address side of this building, we may be blocks away or maybe even at the wrong building from where the address and the alarm comes in. Staging, even with a pre-assignment, is essential. And then finally, we have to execute our pre-assignments. We all know by studying this SOP that we will have a job on these incidents. Understanding your arrival sequence and helping command keep track of what your assignment is will be one of our keys to success. That's all I got.
Man, that's beautiful. That's eloquent.
We should have been reading this the whole time.
I know. We should have been.